Oh, we're live. Okay, this is March 15th. Again, St. Patrick's Day in a day or so, Ides of March today, and Pi Day yesterday. Today we're going to move from what we were doing in chapter 21 to go back to the beginning on the triumphal entry and what I call donkey voices. And a very great multitude spread their garments in the way. Others cut down branches from the trees and strawed them in the way. And the multitudes that went before and that followed cried, saying, Hosanna to Son of David. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. This is from John. There are accounts of the entry in all four Gospels. There's the Palm Sunday brochure from a number of years ago. I'm grabbing the wrong thing. It's cutting off part of the bottom of the screen. We'll just have to go with it here for now. Not the rain on the parade, but there appears to be a deeper meaning to the event than often portrayed. Remember, this is Palm Sunday is in 2 weeks, but we need to do this today. So they took branches of palm trees and went forth to meet him and cried, Hosanna, blessed is the King of Israel that cometh in the name of the Lord. And each account is slightly different. It's in John that mentions palm branches, and that's where we get the palm branches coming from. I put some different versions there. If you look at the Wessex Gospel there, let me move over to find that. In the Wessex Gospel, it says, the twiggin. You see the twigs? That's the Old English. We got the twiggin of the trees. And also in the Wessex, they went. No, do you see that they goed there? Gjoden, they goed. It used to be you could say went or goed, but you're not supposed to say goed anymore. You can say I wend my way, I go my way, so it's just interesting parts. So we have those different parts of the entry with the palm branches. That's where we get the having palm branches to hand out. It's also, the palm tree is related, of course, with the branch to the Phoenicians, and also to the phoenix bird, and because of another reason, the color red, but we're not going to get into that today. Let's pick up there. And when they drew nigh unto Jerusalem, and were come to Bethpage unto the Mount of Olives, then sent Jesus two disciples. Two disciples. Yeah, the buddy system, right? You don't want them to be lazy or anything. Last week, my wife, she accused me of being lazy. I don't understand. I didn't do anything. Oh, okay. She didn't really do that. That was just part of the joke. Okay. Saying unto them, go into the village over against you on the other side, and straightway, immediately, you shall find an ass or donkey tied, and a colt with her. The donkey is female. They have both masculine and feminine for this word, and so it would be a female. And a colt, and the colt's going to be a male. With her, loose them and bring them to me. So we have the donkey. Onus is the word for donkey. Interestingly, the Latin word onus as a bird, and that's a big onus, is kind of like a play on words there. I'm not sure it's used. The colt is with her. How many animals? 2 animals, yeah. And polos, you could do poleo, sell an office as 2 birds selling themselves out. But Matthew's just giving a commentary. I wouldn't put any big play on words here. Now the polos was the foal or filly, could be either one. And that we have the ancient word. It's related to foal because in Grimm's Law, P and F, are similar. So it came down in Greek as polos. It came down through Old English as foal. And it was also the name of a Corinthian coin from Corinth with a figure of Pegasus on it. Now, do donkeys have wings? No, because you may have seen a horse fly, but I don't know if you've ever seen a donkey fly. And that goes back to Shrek, right? Yeah. And of course, a pony with a sore throat would be a little horse, right? Let's not put the horse before the cart or the hearse before the cart with that dead joke, right? Okay. And if any man ought to you, say anything, you shall say, the Lord hath need of them. Wants it, needs it, similar word. And straightway, immediately, he will send them. It's like a prearranged password. Otherwise, is he telling the disciples to go take someone's donkey? He saw it? No, it's prearranged. And it tells you that a little bit in the other Gospels. Yeah, the strong do not want a healer. The strong do not need a healer. Yeah. Well, a little bit of review here. But when Jesus heard this, he said to them that they that are strong, not whole, need not a healer. In other words, the birds who are strong don't want that healer. They're doing it their own self. But they that are sick, no, it says those that are bad, those that are harmed. Remember we had that bird call, kakus, kakos, and I went back and looked where Jesus uses it. Do those who have been deceived by the birds with all the cackling of the birds, the kakos, kakos, do they need him? Yeah, they need him to speak out. He's going to do that in all chapter 21. Yeah. Now, back to the triumphal entry. All this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the prophet, this is Isaiah, saying, Zacharias. Tell ye the daughter of Zion, behold, thy king cometh unto thee meek and sitting on a donkey ass and on a colt, the young one of a beast of burden. I'm reading what, if you go back to the Septuagint, which Jesus and Paul will quote, what it says. But they changed a lot of that. What you find is that when you have accounts in the gospel, and there are different accounts, there are several different views. One is the translators and people will try to reconcile all the different parts and make them be the same so there are no discrepancies. Some people won't care if there are discrepancies or not. And then when they make these assumptions, they don't tell you. So there are a number of assumptions here. You might have heard, I've heard a sermon, what does it mean to be meek and sitting on a donkey? Well, being meek only applies, you only need to worry about that if in fact this prophecy applies. So you have to look at it because each one of these has a context, and everyone who writes remembers different things or may have a certain agenda on what they want to portray. And this isn't Jesus talking, this is Matthew saying things. It's not like the same level as if Jesus were saying it. Go back to Zechariah, O daughter of Zion, riding on a donkey and on a colt, the new one of a beast of burden. So we got a big stretch there. Now, if Matthew is quoting or cherry picking a verse out of Zechariah to say why this is happening, what should you do? How about going back to Zechariah and see what it says? And so that's what I did. I pulled out 3 verses. I went through all of chapter 9, and the ones before and after are pretty much the same. And I will encamp about mine house because of the army, because of him that passeth by, and because of him that returneth. And no oppressor shall pass through them any more, for now I have seen with mine eyes. Then we have the prophecy. Verse 10, and I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall speak peace until the heathen, and his dominion shall be from sea even to sea, and from the river even to the ends of the earth. Does that all fit together? Doesn't it seem a little contrived? What does that mean? Can we pick that one verse out, change a few words, and apply it to Jesus walking in for the triumphal entry? That's called cherry picking a verse to support your own POV or point of view. Everyone know the POV stands for point of view? I wondered that on the internet. I kept seeing this and finally, that's what it means. I didn't realize these new words. So back to Matthew. And the disciples, they went and they did as Jesus commanded them. See Jesus commanding? He's saying, you do this. Not really. That word syntaxon literally means to put together in order. It was used for lining up soldiers in line to get them all into order. So they went and did as Jesus had arranged. he had arranged this, right, with the password. And all it's saying is they went and did what he had arranged. He's not there giving them orders to do things. So and that comes through the Latin where they had changed a word or so there. Brought the ass, the donkey, and the colt, and notice they leave out the and in the Greek because now we need to get to what's actually happening. And put on them clothes, and they set him thereon. Donkey's female, colt is male. Were the two animals dressed up when they had clothes put on them? It was a close call. You see, it's hard to figure who's them, right? And thereon there's another them at the end. Thereon is on them. Who is them? And you have to realize, and the ago is the lead, fetch, bring. Who is them? Now, did Jesus sit on the cloaks, the garments, which could be just a piece of cloth, or on both the donkey and the colt? Or was there only one, but it appears like there's two? So we get into all these little discrepancies. And what you'll hear is, and you'll hear this probably in 2 weeks, because they do it in all sermons. They say, and riding a donkey into a city for a king was a sign of peace. Well, none of these kings were peaceful. And I went and looked at with AI and so forth and doing internet searches. Yeah, everyone says that, but no one can give an actual example of ancient kings doing that. And then they give the ones from the Bible, and you go back and look at them. That's not really what it says. So if you want to promote peace in the world and all this peace, you say, oh, he rode in as a symbol of peace. Well, I can't find anything. If you can research and find where he says that, that would be good. Now, they quote Solomon. The king also, this is King David, said unto them, take with you the servants of your Lord, and cause Solomon my son to ride upon mine own mule, that is a half donkey, and bring him down to Gihon. And I read through the parts before and after. Of course, Solomon brought in war horses and chariots. He was at war sometimes. And this isn't even a donkey, it's a half donkey. And so they use this as the big reason why the new king would ride in on a donkey as a sign of peace. And again, I couldn't find that. So I looked and I couldn't find anything. But you'll see everyone repeats it. If you repeat it over and over, it's just you shouldn't base an argument of what you're going to say about the entry on that. So it's not a big deal other than you shouldn't be building arguments on things you can't find. The other one they listed is Jehu. And they hasted and took every man his garment and put it under him on the top of the steps. I think this is Gotham is top, not stairs. And blew a trumpet, saying, Jehu is king. And they'll use this, but I can't find any donkey anywhere in the story. And Jehu talked about peace a lot, but he also had war. But Jehu did do one thing that was interesting. He made a big ceremony, say, if you are a supporter of Baal, we're having a big celebration for Baal, like a wedding feast. And if you're not there, you're not part of the crowd. And anyone with Baal should come to this feast. And when they got there, he had them all slaughtered. And it's kind of like the same trick where he says, kakus, kakus, call in the birds, bird call in the wedding feast, which we'll get to eventually. And remember, that's in chapter 21. This appears in the same, a day later in the entry into Jerusalem, Palm Sunday. So yeah, that will fit in with Jehu and the wedding feast. I'll mention more about that in a few minutes. Think not that I have come to send peace on the earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. Did Jesus come to do that? And let me check. Oh, there we go. The connection seems to be dropping in and out. I'm not sure why. I'll just keep going here. But did Jesus come to send peace? Now the sword appears to be the flaming sword that keeps the way open to the way of life. And so that's the sword he's bringing. But thus you get into these issues when you start talking about peace, so forth. And one pastor, you might remember, made an emphatic point that Jesus was riding a donkey and not a horse as a great and powerful king. Other pastors do that too. When you go to Revelation, you see, appears to be Jesus coming back. And you behold a white horse. Jesus is on the big horse, returning as a king. So it kind of, that part doesn't seem to fit too well. Let's go back to Matthew 21. And a very great multitude, doesn't say great, but multitude, a crowd, spread their garments in the way. Others cut down branches. From John, there would be palm trees, palm branches, and strewed them in the way. And the multitudes that went before and followed cried, saying, Hosanna to Son of David, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. Remember, the crowds are saying that. Does Jesus ever say that he's the one? Does he say this is the day? Remember from last week? He doesn't say he's going to say that. This is the day that the Lord hath made. This is the day. There's a song for that. Remember, Jesus says, I'm not going to tell you by what authority I do this. This was last week. The stone which the builders refused has become the headed stone of the corner. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in our eyes. Well, does that give him any justification to say the kingdom of God's taken from you in the next verse? No, he leaves that out. He didn't tell him, but he's saying this is the day. This is the day. I'm here. This is the authority I'm using, but he doesn't actually tell them. They have to have read the scriptures, which they won't admit that they hadn't. The very great multitude is the plistos, very much for the most part. It says for the most part, the crowd. Doesn't say anything about how big it was. So you hear pastors say, oh, and they had this big crowd, and they might have had an insurrection, and Pilate would be worried. It just says for the most part. And we had a crowd there. We don't know how big the crowd were. Folk, like Volkswagen. And we get it as folk, so it's just showing how some of those are related. And when he was come into Jerusalem, all the city was moved. Who is this? The word is seo from esisti. We get seismic from it. Or it was an earthquake coming in. They were moved in that, they were like an earthquake coming in is what it says. Who is this? And it doesn't have to be a question, but the next verse, we know it's a question. Remember earlier at Christmas this had happened? When Herod the king heard, he was troubled. It's a word related to turbo, as in turbocharge or noise with the turbo. And all Jerusalem with him. So Jerusalem is all, they were an earthquake, and here we have them being with a turbocharge. All visitors must report to Herod. Remember the wise men came in to see Herod. So this is reminiscent of that. Who is this person? This is Jesus, the prophet of Nazareth of Galilee. Remember Galilee right north of Samaria? We have Nazareth there. There's Nazareth. This is part overlooking the Jezreel Valley. And there's Megiddo. And the mountain, the Har-Megiddo, which is, you might have heard of that as Armageddon. And that's overlooking there, and Jerusalem and then is down to the southeast. Yeah. Now, this is the beginning, the triumphal entry, right here. We have a lot of things going on till the crucifixion in chapter 27, and the Last Supper in chapter 26. He's doing all these discourses. We've covered a lot of this. What are all these things about? He's going to turn the tables on the money, saying, you made my house, a den of thieves, den of robbers. He's going to talk about the fig tree curse, moving this mountain, all the problems you're going to have in the future if you're not careful. The lack of restraint. Oh, I'm not going to tell you. But he does. The children. And one doesn't say, I'm not going. He says, I am Lord. I'm a Lord myself. He appears to make his own little vineyard with the householder. We have the rock-hard evidence. And then we'll have the parable of the wedding feast. This appears to be related to some of that. All these things appear to be related. Let's go to the end of the wedding feast. We'll cover the whole thing later. Those servants went out into the highways and gathered together as many as they found, both bad and good. It's actually evil and good. And the wedding was furnished with guests. We need to fill the pews. We need to go out and bring everyone in, good and bad. And this is that bird call I was talking about. Because what the Lord says is, go to the exit ramps of the paths and call them. He doesn't say bring them in. Just call them. Don't promise us anything. Call them and tell them what God's saying. And they bring them all in, and they throw the one guy, the servants do this, and the one person doesn't have a wedding gown, they throw him into outer darkness, right? And the only person who did anything wrong were these servants, and the person throwing them out is a deacon, not a servant. And so we have this. And the Textus Receptus, as usual, changes the words. It's not the wedding was furnished, it's the bride chamber was furnished. Nymphon. And they change it to the wedding. What does that mean? Well, there's a play on words there. Nymphe is the bride, nymphios is the bridegroom. Ever heard of a nymph? You know, like sound like a mermaid or something? Well, that's, yeah, nymphon, so that's where that word comes from. Nymphon. And he says, the wedding chamber. Oh, the bride chamber. Oh, nymphonis. We get a little play. He's, no, you see donkey in there? The donkey voice, phonos, as in phonograph. We get the voices there. Oh, maybe the rest of the verse will help. The donkey voices, if when they're remaining, because some went to their field, some went other places, and they weren't, that's where they were supposed to be going, and they were doing what they were supposed to. So all those left at the bride chamber were those brought in, the good and bad, not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so we have this little strange play on words at the end. Notice the whole chapter started out in chapter 21 with the donkey, right? We're riding the donkey. So if we look at Peter, which have forsaken the right way and gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Bosor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness, but was rebuked for his iniquity, the dumb beast of burden is what it says, speaking with man's voice forbade the madness of the prophet. All we need to know is Balaam wanted money, and he wanted to be tricky and get around God's rules. He didn't want to violate God, but he wanted to get around. So we have this story. The other thing we need to know is this. Remember, straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth away from life, and few be that find it. And those few are the wolves who find it. In other words, the narrow way, they actually changed the words, the meaning here, and went through this in the Cambridge Greek Lexicon, that leadeth into life. That word has 14 meanings. The first one is literally what it says, leading away from. The next 12 are all leading away from related. Finally, the New Testament gets its own entry, number 14, which is the opposite of the first 13 that says leads into. So remember, the narrow way is not where you're supposed to be going. But that's, if you go in any conservative church or anyone who reads this, they all say, oh, you need to go this narrow way. And that's not what it says. So we're going to go through the verses here quick. I'm just going to read and make a few comments. And Balaam answered and said unto the servants of Balak, if Balak would give me the house full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the word of the Lord my God to do any less or any more. The Septuagint, in my mind. In other words, he's doing things in his mind and then trying to get around them. Therefore I pray you, tarry here this night. And God came to Balaam at night and said to him, if the men come to call thee, rise up and go with them, but yet the word which I shall say unto thee thou shalt do. And Balaam rose up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his donkey, and 2 servants with him. So in the triumphal entry, we apparently have 2 animals and one him. Here we have 2 servants and 1 animal. He's riding it. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord. The donkey saw it, but not Balaam. Standing in the way, sword drawn in the hand, and the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field. No one knows why it went into the field. Wasn't that what's said in the wedding feast? The ones who were doing went into the field. They went to their own field, God's field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way, in other words, his way. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself unto the wall and crushed his foot, and he smote her again. Now, if it crushed his foot, he's had trouble walking. The words actually say she went away from there and away from his foot and wanted to go towards the field. Angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right hand or the left. And these walls are translated differently, but it's the same words the householder uses where they put up walls. we get into the walls. The angel doesn't want the donkey or Balaam to go where? Into the narrow place. Why not the narrow place? Well, that's what we just read in Matthew 7. You're supposed to go away from that place into the field and not into the narrow place. And when the ass saw the angel, she fell down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. This is what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount. If the leadership tells you to do something and you know Jesus doesn't want to do it, you just don't do it. You fall down, you go do it. And what are they going to do? Like Peter says, they're going to beat you because they want you to do something. You say, well, I don't think the Bible says that. I'm just not going to do it. And historically, you get in trouble with that. And the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said unto Balaam, what have I done unto thee that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? So the donkey's finally saying something, and it's for a purpose here. He's going to warn them. We're going to see the angel. Is this part of what Jesus was doing coming in the triumphal entry? Was he the talking donkey saying, oh, what have you done to me? And you know what you're supposed to do, and you have the angel standing there. You're going to be in trouble if you keep going the way you're going, and all those little parables remind you of that. And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me. You mocked me? Just because you're saying you don't think I'm doing the right thing? I would therefore have a sword in my hand, for now I would kill thee, which has happened historically. And the ass said to Balaam, am I not thine donkey, upon which thou hast ridden since I was thine until this day? Was I ever one to do so under thee? No. And the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed down and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said to him, wherefore hast thou smitten the ass, the donkey, 3 times? I went out to withstand thee. And that withstand is the word for devil, diabolus, because thy way is perverse before me. And the ass saw and turned from me these times, and unless she had turned from me, surely now I would have slain thee and saved her alive. And Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I knew not that thou stoodest in the way against me. Now therefore, if it displease thee, I will get back again. And the angel of the Lord said unto Balaam, go in with the men, but only the word I shall speak unto thee, that shalt thou speak. So Balaam went with the princes of Balak. So in the wedding feast, they're just supposed to call, but they go do more, and they bring everyone in. They do these things they're not supposed to. We have these little correspondence between what Balaam is doing and what you're not supposed to do. And Jesus, as a talking representative of talking donkey, said, what are you doing? Have I ever led you wrong? Why are you doing these things? You're going this way, and you're not supposed to be going there. And Peter has some things on that. He talks about it. The natural brute beast. Yeah, is anyone here a brute beast? And so, I'm not a brute beast. That was a Greek word, a military word for a magnificent war horse. And the only purpose of those war horses were to go and die in battle. And he's saying, if you're doing all this evil speaking and you don't understand it, you'll utterly perish in your corruption because you're like a war horse. And he talked about, but was rebuked for his iniquity, the dumb beast of burden, speaking with the man's voice forbade the madness of the prophet. And the word here is the beast of burden, the one doing all the work. People at the bottom doing all the work, and the others who are the magnificent horses, and they don't realize what they're talking about. And the disciples did as Jesus appointed. Oh, this is the next one. Appointed them, and then made ready the Passover. We're going to skip 5 chapters and go to the Last Supper because we're not going to meet in 2 weeks. And then for Easter, I'll do the denials of Peter, both of which have interesting parts of them. There's a literal meaning and a secondary meaning. Now when even have come, he sat down with the 12, and as they did it, he said, verily I say unto you that one of you shall betray me. And think about that. There are 2 types of betrayals, and we only take the one from Judas. There's a second one there, same word in Greek, and we want to look at that and what happens at the Last Supper. So today we looked at the triumphal entry, Palm Sunday. And you're going to hear all about peace and Zechariah and riding in on a peaceful animal as a symbol, but I can't find any of that. When I look, well, we have the donkey. We have the play on words with the donkey at the end of the wedding feast. And we have all these correspondences and a lot of the same words that are in the Balaam story, which we didn't have time to cover, was Jesus really coming in as a symbol of peace in the worldly sense? Or was he coming in to warn you about all the things you need to be warned about before he gets crucified, so that you know that in the future? So it gives you something to think about. So thank you. This has been the triumphal entry and where we get the donkey voices at the beginning of Matthew 21. Thank you.